Number one, if you think somebody else is being hypersensitive to something you have said or done, first respond with curiosity because maybe not. I've had that happen to me where I
That's true.
truly, honest to God, and I'm going to tell on myself on this one. There were years ago, I had an employee who came in with dreads to work, and it was against our current dress code. But she did not know, by the way, she did not know that. And she came in, and I said something to her, and she goes, "Well, Miss Cat, you can't say anything to me about that. That's discrimination against my religious beliefs." And instead of me going, "What are you, girl? Just go change your hair or something," I stopped and I go, "Okay, tell me more about, can you explain that to me a little bit?" And she did. And certainly she was right. So we had to actually update the policy, so on and so forth. That was when I was working for another company. And so that changed. I didn't mean to be offensive to her, but I was. And so I had to go, okay, oh shoot. let's change this. And somebody could have gone, "Well, that's just her hairdo. She's just, I've had situations, the same thing with like tattooing. I had a lady come in, she had facial tattoos. My recruiter told her, "I'm so sorry, you're not eligible for a job here because of your face tattooing." She said, "Actually, that's a religious symbol. You can't discriminate against me." And she didn't say it rudely. She just let him know. So again, the curiosity, right? So maybe something you said was not meant as offensive. Maybe you tried to compliment somebody and it came out in a weird way. But, so ask.
Speaking with Katherine McCord. Katherine is the president of Titan Management, a national people operations consulting firm. Katherine, could you please introduce yourself? Let people know just a little more about you, please.
Absolutely. So I actually am spending a lot of my time right now. And thank you for having me, by the way. I nearly forgot that part, Ed. Thank you so much for having me. Um, I am excited. I'm excited to be here. And I'm excited because I've been spending a lot more time traveling internationally and teaching classes about neurodiversity, disability, inclusion, and as well as best hiring practices and how to truly innovate, which is what I love. I'm all about innovation, inclusion, and integrity. Those are my three missions, and I eat, live, and breathe by them. And I don't know. I don't. What else do you want to know? That's kind of the basics of what I do, and I love every minute of it.
Well, Katherine, that's a good place to start. What got you started in this field of work?
That is a really good question. So when I was a little girl, my mother began working in HR, and she would travel around doing conventions, things like that. And I loved to play HR and recruiting with her. And I would make her fill out applications, interview with me. I would be her boss. I fired her once, which is super rude, by the way. Like a little 5-year-old should not be firing her mother. That's that's
Yeah.
really not very cool. And then turn around and is like, "Hey, make me some mac and cheese, lady." Um, so that was super rude. But and my father is an educator, and so I had that inspiration. He was my stay-at-home parent, and he would uh, take me with him when he did teach college, and then even as as I got older and he progressed in his career, I would still go to events at his college and sit in on some of his classes, and it was just very inspirational for me. And so I always loved education. I always loved HR and recruiting. And then when I was about 8 or 9, my cousins and I formed a pretend company and sold shares to it. So the entrepreneurial aspect was even built in. And I am neuro and physically diverse. I have more diagnoses than most 75-year-olds, which Aflac actually informed me of on accident. They actually called me because they didn't think they had my age right on a form. And but I didn't get into that part because of me. I got into it because of the nonsense that I saw happening to other people. And I saw a lot of pain where there didn't need to be pain. So I got into that business to solve that problem.
Yeah, it's really a touchy, touchy field that you chose.
It
But
is.
with the background you have with your parents being what they were, that kind of helped you develop the skills that you needed to deal with a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's interesting through my looking through your files and all that, anti-bias applicant tracking system plugin.
Oh, yeah. I nearly
This
forgot I
intrigues
invented a
me.
technology. I
Well,
nearly forgot.
is it still active? And could you
Yeah.
explain what that is?
Yeah. So HR tech hasn't really evolved that much since the applicant tracking part of HR tech has not really evolved much since the 90s. So an applicant tracking system, for anybody who doesn't know, is a CRM or customer service tool for humans, right? For HR. And so whenever you apply to a job, that's where your application goes. Well, they were developed in the 90s as a response to things like monster.com, career builder, those types of job boards. And what happened was they built it and then they just kind of let it sit. And yeah, they put some cool features, but the actual design never changed. And so I realized over the years all the problems that this caused. So, from them being utterly confusing sometimes to fill out, to taking way too long and stressing people out. Walmart, by the way, currently has a 1 hour application process, which is certifiably insane. Uh, they were one of the ones that we used as a test project for this. And and there's a lot of bias generated in them from showing, of course, things as obvious as name and gender and age, or potentially age, to things like, they if they focus too much on a resume, certain colors can actually cause bias generation. How they ask certain questions will not cue the same responses from different people. And so people, it's too subjective. And so we wanted to make things a lot more clear, a lot more accessible, a lot. And that's the other thing, a lot of these systems have no accessibility features. So if you are vision impaired, if you have different disabilities, good luck. you know so we wanted to
Yes.
build the first all-inclusive and anti-bias and just better made, because as a recruiter, man, the junk I get from those things tells me nothing. So we also wanted to help the hiring team and help them be able to better tell who actually is a fit for their role. So that's what we designed. I tell people it's designed by the diverse for the diverse, and it is designed by hiring professionals for hiring professionals, and asks things like, how would you rate yourself on these skills that the company has said is important? And we don't show names. We don't show dates. We don't show any potentially discriminatory information, and everything is structured to make more sense.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You apply this all towards disability, inclusion, and
Mhm.
neurodiversity. Is there a reason behind that? What perks the
Oh,
interest
yeah.
to drive it towards that specific
Well,
demographic?
there's a lot of discrimination in hiring. And I really
Yes.
wish that that wasn't true. Ageism is one of the worst out there. And ageism is so
Yeah,
stupid. I have a great story about that if you wanted, about why ageism is stupid.
I
But
sure do.
you do? All right. So we
I love stories.
um so my grandmother, is my Mimi, was 86 when COVID kicked in. And we are a very close-knit family. And she was very sad because she missed her great grands and her grandkids and she couldn't see them. And so she got a smartphone and learned that. And then she said, I want to be able to see them. I said, okay, let's teach you Zoom. So we taught her Zoom. She nailed that. And she said, I want to learn something else. I want to learn something else. This is so fun. And I said, okay, so you know what? We're all tired of giving you cash and checks. We're going to teach you Cash App, you know? So we do that. And I said, okay, now request money from everybody. So she went to her 4 kids and her grandchildren. She said, okay, send me money so I can practice. So everybody sent her some money. And then she looked at me and she goes, okay, you know, so that went really well. I'm excited. And then my mother messages her and says, okay, now practice sending it back to us, you know, so that you can get that right. She goes, oh no, Catherine says that's too hard. I can't learn that. So my grandmother learned 3 new technologies and how to be a con woman during COVID. Don't tell me that people over a certain age can't learn new things.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mimi's a trip.
There's wisdom in that.
There is. Hashtag be like Mimi. And she also had multiple careers. She was a stay-at-home mother for 20 some odd years, rocked that, went into the professional world, had a 9 to 5. Then she went on to be a missionary in Papua New Guinea, and then came back to the States and helped run a business. So she kind of did it all. So also career pivots are amazing. And that's another bias that's out there, is that, you shouldn't pivot careers, just stick with one thing for life. And then there's also a lot of, sexism and all the isms. You know what? All the isms just stink. But I've even seen things as stupid as and this is the problem with resumes, is, things like the color on a resume. So you go, oh, they should have used this color, not this color, or they should have used bold, not italics, or they should have used this or that. And it's all just so ridiculous. And there's no right way to do a resume. There's some wrong things, like, definitely don't do this, but there's not really a right way to do it. And yet that's the document that everyone's livelihood depends on. And that's silly. So we wanted to fire the resume, and we wanted to create a more inclusive process that helps people get through it, because there's just too much discrimination hiring. And again, the technology was blocking a lot of people from employment, and certain groups, including, for instance, people with autism, while they tend to be some of the best employees you'll ever have, in my experience, they have about a 70 to 80% unemployment rate. And when I say unemployment, that means full-time employment. And that's insane. They're brilliant. Why is that? But it's just the system's not built for them.
So what type of system do you think we need to drive more inclusion for the disability? Because I'm disabled myself, and I understand some of the blocks and roadblocks and the struggles that you face in not only your body but your mind. And it's very hard to reach out for help, to get into the workforce and make things happen the way you think they should, but you don't quite understand the tools to get there.
Right.
What systems do we need to put in place to handle more access in a more easy, digestible manner?
First of all, I mean, and this goes before we're even looking for our jobs, these things need to be taught. We need to be teaching humans how to do these things, how to look for a job, how to present yourself effectively. And no one is doing that. You come out of high school and college and they're like, okay, good luck, bye. There's just no follow-up to that, which is utterly insane to me. So first of all, we need to be teaching that. We need to be teaching people how to do those things. And especially for those of us who have different diversities, we might need to learn how to present ourselves more effectively, because communication may or may not be a strong skill for them, and that may or may not be needed in the job that they want. The next thing that needs to happen is that companies need to be more specific about what they want. So if you go in right now and you start to apply to jobs, which I do all the time just for sport, just to see what's out there, what's going on, what people are experiencing, it's a lot of the same nonsense for every single job. And it can be completely different jobs, and it's the exact same application process. Well, why in the world would you have the exact same application process for a salesperson that you do for a CEO? What sense does that make? Or for IT as you do for marketing, that makes no sense. So cater things
Yeah.
for the position, cater your information. And we need to be more specific about what we want, and we need to come to understand the things that matter and don't. For instance, um, there's a lot of emphasis, and I see this a lot when I talk to candidates and they ask me how to best present themselves. Years of experience is something that for some reason companies have clung to as a marker of expertise. But let me tell you, I know a lot of people out there, I'm going to use my field as an example, who have been doing HR for 10, 15 years, who are idiots and should not be in the field anymore. So, the level of expertise is what matters, right? It's what we know. And we need to start framing things correctly, but that knowledge doesn't necessarily come with a job title, right? So we need to actually understand how to look at people and understand what they can do. For instance, my husband was a manager for years and did a lot of hiring. He would even help look for candidates, go out into the community, bring people in. So he'd never technically been a recruiter. But then when he decided he wanted to do recruiting, he just walked right in and did it. It was no problem because he'd technically been doing it the whole time. And the few things he didn't know, he was able to learn lightning quick. So it may not always, you wouldn't think the manager of a moving company and somebody who had built a financial business from the ground up, would be the person to step into a recruiting job and rock it. And yet he did, and I've seen example after example. So companies need to reframe what it is that they're looking for, and they need to learn how to present it. So look at it from skills. These are the skills that we need, and this is the problem that we need solved. And that's it. And just put it like that. Companies are being way too ridiculous and way too bland with this. Just, this is the problem we need solved. Can you solve it? Cool. Here's the skills we need you to have, the hard skills. Can you do that? Cool. Have a conversation about, and then what's cool about you, that kind of thing. Outside of that, who cares? The rest of it you can just
Yeah.
figure out. But it needs to be a lot
Very
more
interesting.
communication, right?
Yeah, a lot more. And people really need to learn more about how to communicate. You stated that earlier.
That.
You know, with how has the workplace actually evolved over let's say, what has it been since COVID hit? 3 years?
3 years, yeah, give or take.
Three years. So how has the workplace evolved over the past few years there? And what are we seeing in the challenges that we face post COVID?
So the coolest thing to me that's happened is that the power shift happened. That now workers are getting the power, and they're starting to realize, hey, wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. I get a say so because you can't live without me. Yeah, this is symbiotic. Like, you don't get to just tell me
Yeah.
how it is and that's just it. And I love that. Now, there's some kind of weird things happening with that too, but overall, it's great and it's really beautiful. And people are understanding that they can have expectations, which is wonderful. We are also seeing better pay, better benefits. Downside is companies are getting super nosy during the application process. Now, I think that they are trying to be inclusive. I really do. I think it comes from a good point of, a good place. But they're asking things like, what is your disability? Which, first of all, is illegal. Can't ask that. But it is on applications. I've seen it myself. What is your sexuality? Why do you need to know that? That's so weird.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
a friend of mine, Sydney Ware, who's in HR, says, if they can look at you and say that's none of your business, or I don't know you like that, don't ask it. You're being weird, in a bad way. So we're seeing a lot of that, some nosiness, which is strange. A lot more, remote, which is wonderful. I love everything about that, and that's also part of inclusion. As much as possible to be remote. Obviously, some jobs you can't do remote. My mom literally had somebody ask her, it was a surgical tech, if they could be remote. Like, how are you going to hand a doctor surgical equipment if you're at your house? That makes no sense. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
I digress. But we've seen some really cool things with that, and we've seen a lot of evolution. But right now, there's a very strange phenomenon happening that I've not seen before, and neither have any of the people that I know that have been in HR for longer than I've been alive. And that's that there's a confusion of a lot of companies saying that they can't find talent, but then a lot of people who are saying that they can't get a callback for a job. And then there's all these layoffs. So then there's more people in the job market than there ought to be. And it's this strain. And that's the other thing, for all these layoffs, which that happens cyclically. That's just an overreaction to the economy, and or it's planned, which is a whole other conversation. But right now there is a lot of that confusion. So it's been interesting for job seekers because on the one hand, yes, there are a ton of jobs out there. But on the other hand, for some reason, HR folks aren't getting back and hiring teams aren't getting back. And nobody can seem to figure out why. I'm starting to wonder if the technology is not working. Like, it's like we all think it's working, but it's just not. Like I was recently told by somebody who works for LinkedIn that when you go in there and apply for a job, it tells you how many people have applied. And she said that number is actually not right. That's just the number of people who have looked. So I'm also going, how many people have looked at a job and said, oh, 700 people applied, I'm not going to apply to that. But then they would have been the person,
That's a good point. Yeah.
So who knows?
So that internal structure and programming of these tools that assist people in the hiring really need to take a better look at the internal structure and programming. That's huge.
Yeah, when I found that out, I thought,
many
oh
people
my gosh.
think like that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I thought, wow, if what if that's it, or with Indeed, because I've had situations where I was trying to email candidates actively going, hey, I really want you to work for me, from their resume database. And some of them I found later on LinkedIn, they said, I even went to my spam and I never got your email. So I'm just curious how, I know those systems work overall. I'm not trying to bash LinkedIn or Indeed, but maybe there are some glitches happening. Maybe there's some things not working quite as they should. Maybe that's something to be looked into.
And that does happen all the time. So,
technology is great when it works.
Their technology officer needs to get in and kind of really dive in and look at that.
Absolutely.
Now, another part of that also, Katherine, is automation, because along with COVID, not only did the worker see this ability to empower himself or herself, there also comes along where the companies said, well, we need to invest more in automation and get the robots ticking and doing these jobs. So there's this influence and balance taking place. And what's your thought on that in the world today?
In general, I think that AI is fascinating. I think it can do some fantastic things. I've watched it work. I've seen technologies just be remarkable with applicant tracking and things like that. I am all for automating things like, if you close out a job, every candidate gets a notification email. If you hit reject on a candidate, they automatically get that email. You don't have to sit there and type it up, but at least it lets them know. Things like that. That kind of thing is wonderful. What makes me frustrated is that we're seeing a lot of people try to replace humans with AI too soon. And so, for instance, I love going to the HR tech conventions. It's a ton of fun. And every time I'm there, I see a couple of new technologies that, oh, we can do what a recruiter can do. We're just as good as a human. I said, really? I crack my knuckles. Let's test that theory. And by the time I'm done, they're just like drooping in their chairs. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be mean. I just want you to understand your product has value, and here's where it has value. And I tell them straight up that this is where your product has value. It's definitely something worth marketing, but quit telling people it can replace a human, because it can't. And here's why. And I think people are jumping to that a little too quick. I think these tools are great. I think there's definitely a place for them, but we need to slow it down a little bit and realize that we still need our humans in certain aspects as well. And don't automate everything. For instance, if you have, like I said, if you reject a candidate, they get an auto email. That should only be done if you've not spoken to the person. If you've spoken to a person, pick up the phone or text or however they said they want to be communicated with and let them know. Send something personalized. Don't just send them a canned thing. That's rude. That's so rude. Human touch matters.
Human touch does matter,
especially in hiring.
Yeah. And in every sector of our world right now, you're kind of seeing this diminished ability in doing their job and completing tasks as asked. It's
right.
really affecting many people in many ways, and nobody's talking about it really. But you go in for a prescription, there's mix-ups, there's confusion, and it's, look at the restaurants as a good sign
and what
of
happened
that
to customer
also.
service? Like, what the heck?
Yes.
It's
So
terrible.
there's this diminished capability in what a company is able to provide because of the limited pooling in the talent. And what you're suggesting is actually pooling in a different way so you can scrape out the talent that is hidden in the cracks.
Yes. And focus on your missions and mission alignment more than anything else. Like who belongs here. I say this to candidates too. Find the companies that match with your personal mission. So, mine are your passion, same thing, right? So my missions in life are integrity, inclusion, innovation. Every single thing I do has to hit on those 3 points or I don't do it, or at least 2 of the 3. Right. And I do not do it. And so it's the same kind of thing. That's what you should be looking for as a candidate looking for a job, because you'll get hired quicker, you'll stay longer, you'll be happier, you'll be more productive. But it's the same thing, right? So companies are missing these people that would get in there and just grab hold of their project or their job and just run with it, for these people that are there like, this is a good paycheck, which there's nothing wrong with that. I want to say that there's nothing wrong with just getting a paycheck. But as a company, you are missing talent by just having these bland application processes. Get to know people, go out and put in a search on LinkedIn and see what comments people are making about that, and go find you some talent that way. Find somebody who said something genius on a post that way. A few top recruiters I know are doing that, by the way. That is slowly becoming a thing.
Interesting.
And just get to know people, get on podcasts, listen to who's been a guest, find a genius that way. Get to know the human and find that passion, find that fire, find that person that's going to grab it and run. That's what you want. And in every job, there's that, right? I have known, secretaries that are passionate about their work. I've known product people, IT people, sales people, executives that are they just love it. And I've known people that if something is about a certain subject matter, they'll do it and they will rock it. So, focus on the missions and focus on the passions and the hidden talent. Those people that you might not have found otherwise, those are sometimes the best people.
Definitely when missions align between employer and employee, there's much more success out of that.
Oh gosh, yes. And then clear communication of what you want from them too.
Yes. That's a big point.
This is what we expect.
Yes, the ability to communicate effectively, that's also diminishing because there's so much polarization in the world, and it's hard to find the common ground and stop injecting our own biases.
Right.
It's really an interesting place we're in, not only in our personal lives, but every aspect of our life is that way. And business,
every aspect.
Business has to be very tough right now for almost everybody.
Yes.
So how, are we seeing an increase in mental health issues in the
Oh gosh,
workforce?
yes.
And what are some of those driving factors causing this?
I think that number one, there are still people clinging to the separate personal and professional that doesn't actually work inside the human mind. Now, obviously, I'm not advocating for just, spending all day talking about your kids or something at work. That's not what I mean. I mean that we are holistic beings. And so if we're at work, but our mother is in the hospital and our kid just got a new diagnosis and, all these things, we're very stressed out. And so and right now, to your point, there's a lot of polarizing things happening. And no matter what side of things you're on, even honestly, even if you're getting your way right now, that can be stressful
Mhm.
because there's so many people telling you that you're wrong and it's so aggressive. And so both sides are so pent up right now, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot of stress. And so we need to understand that people are holistic. They need to be able to function where they're at. So, a few things that I've seen work that I think are genius is, and the first time I saw this one, I thought it was hippie nonsense. But once it worked, I was like, all right, well, I've been proven wrong. You got to go with it. It's the red light, green light system. Or the traffic light system, right? So a client of mine, Synchro, they are wonderful with their inclusion in their mental health practices. And at the beginning of every meeting or conversation, they say, you know, where are you today? What's your color? And it's green as I'm great. And you can give various shades of green. Yellow means I'm so. I need some help. And that indicates to other people to reach out and offer them help. Or I'm a red. I am not good. And so if this is a decision-making meeting, it stops right there. This is not a healthy place to make a decision right now or something like that. We will revisit it. And then people go, okay, do you need to take the rest of the day? How can we help? What can we do? And people just really jump in and support. And I thought that was genius, absolute
Yeah.
genius. It was just a great, and you don't have to even share why. It's just, this is where I'm at. And then the whole team can come around you to help you and to work more productively. And that's really helped them a lot. Building up the psychological safety, of course, so that people can dissent, they can tell you what's going on. And then I'm glad that we're actually moving away from being shy about days off. Like now people are like, no, I just need a day off. Like, leave me the heck alone. And I'm super glad that we're seeing an increase in that and a truly unlimited paid time off, because adults are adults. And you should be allowed to adult whenever you want to. As long as the job gets done, who cares? I mean, I actually, when I've hired people to work for my company, I've told them I don't care if you work 2 hours a day. If it gets done, it gets done. Do whatever you want to do. You're an adult human, you know?
Right.
But I think the mental health is bad because of everything going on and just because of life. I mean, also just life is still life. And we're slowly transitioning out of it, which is super exciting. But we need to keep pushing. And individuals need to remember to look at their company and say, this is my need, and I need you to accommodate this. And you can always put in an accommodation request, right? There's always a way to do that. But honestly, if you just go to your manager, I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, unless your manager just sucks, 9 times out of 10, if you go to your manager and you just say, I need help right now, or I need to be able to be off right now, or whatever it is, they will work with you. So taking a little bit of that responsibility and that self advocacy is very important as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just, I think the mental health of the United States right now is tragic, just
Yes.
across the board. So
Yes.
everybody give each other grace, please.
Yes. Yes. And the big thing is we're all adults, and we have to remember that, especially our top leadership,
Oh gosh,
because that really drives in waves the attitude that most of our citizens put out.
oh yeah,
So if we've got good leadership and we've got people trying to, you know, include everybody and make sure things
mm,
go right,
right,
that really helps. But
yes,
our world is just a ball right now that is, you know, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and
No,
it's just
it's
the
crazy.
fact, and we all have to live that.
Yeah,
It's part of life.
it
So
is, but it's
dealing with that
crazy.
mental health and
Yeah.
communicating effectively with your employers and your family and social circles,
Yes.
that's the most important thing to be healthy, is to
Absolutely.
be able to let it out.
Yes.
And
In a
that's
healthy
that's
way.
why I love podcasting, in
Yes.
a healthy way. Yes.
Yeah.
and
Same.
and
Same.
sometimes we have to learn to do that,
Right.
let it out in a healthy way,
Yes.
because we're
And part
so
of that,
bottled up.
I'm
So
gonna give a lesson here. I'm gonna give a lesson on this because this is so much a part of this is
mhm.
breaking your ego defense. Okay, so the ego defense is a naturally occurring
Yes,
phenomenon
yes,
in the brain, right? And
yep,
it's your brain needs to be right scientifically. And so when something tells it that it's wrong, it goes, no, I'm not because, and then it fires up all these reasons. But that's
yep,
not, and that's helpful to us when we're little children, right? And it was helpful back in the hunter-gatherer days and all that, but it's not so very helpful, especially navigating this particular world climate, to your point. So when somebody says something to you or you read something and it starts that ego defense, instead of responding with the ego, recognize what that is. Take a deep breath and respond with curiosity and say, tell me more about that, and
I love
learn
it.
and
Yes,
learn, because you'll be surprised. And
yes,
even if you end up not agreeing with that person, fine, whatever, you still learned, you open lines of communication, and you will grow as a human doing that automatically. And
that's
you don't have to
huge.
agree with everybody. You don't. That's okay.
Yep,
But truly
that's right.
listen and truly be open and respond with curiosity. It makes such a difference.
Yes, I love that. Educate yourself, because
Yes.
once you are open to educating yourself, others see that and they start mimicking. And that's
Yeah,
how we grow a
it's
better
true.
world together. So,
Yes.
inspiration, inclusion, diversity,
Hmm.
all of these things matter when we actually want to live a balanced life. I don't
Yeah.
have to agree with anybody. It's I get to choose to do that.
Yes.
And that comes with educating myself. And
Yes.
sometimes that takes time, but we have to be able to understand that and reciprocate with kindness.
Yes.
And
And
most of
yes.
all, like you just said, curiosity, because
Yes.
that's when we get involved.
Yes.
And I like that.
That's so true.
Are
And
we
I
missing? Go ahead.
I was going to say, and on you were talking, you mentioned inclusion in the middle of that, and made me think. I get a lot of, talking about breaking the ego response and responding with curiosity. I get a lot of confusion in my line of work about what inclusion is in the workplace and what it is not. So, and in life, honestly. So, inclusion, whether in life, politics, workplace, whatever, is about bringing together the different diversities and embracing and allowing them to work in a way that is natural to them and that embraces their culture. Okay. So, in other words, they get to be them as long as they're not hurting anybody else. You get to be
Right.
you as long as you're not hurting anybody else, and as long and in the business, as long as the work still gets done. So, if you have a Christian and they want to say a prayer to themselves, not with the whole group, to themselves before lunch, knock yourself out. If you have a Muslim employee who needs to pray, do their daily prayers, and go off to another room, they can do that. What you may not do is inflict your way onto other humans. That's the thing with inclusion. That's the part that people aren't getting. Yes,
Right.
you can be over
Right.
here and be you. You can be over here and be you. You don't get to inflict that on somebody else.
Right.
That's the difference.
Now that also triggers my curiosity about hypersensitivity, because
Aha.
we deal with that in a lot of our world today where there's
Yes.
a lot of hypersensitivity, and how do we deal with that?
Okay, so many of the two different perspectives. So, number one, if you think somebody else is being hypersensitive to something you have said or done, first respond with curiosity because maybe not. I've had that happen to me where I
That's true.
truly, honest to God, and I'm going to tell on myself on this one. There were years ago, I had an employee who came in with dreads to work, and it was against our current dress code. But she did not know, by the way, she did not know that. And she came in, and I said something to her, and she goes, "Well, Miss Cat, you can't say anything to me about that. That's discrimination against my religious beliefs." And instead of me going, "What are you, girl? Just go change your hair or something," I stopped and I go, "Okay, tell me more about, can you explain that to me a little bit?" And she did. And certainly she was right. So we had to actually update the policy, so on and so forth. That was when I was working for another company. And so that changed. I didn't mean to be offensive to her, but I was. And so I had to go, okay, oh shoot. let's let's change this. And somebody could have gone, well, that's just her hairdo. She's just, I've had situations, the same thing with like tattooing. I had a lady come in. She had facial tattoos. My recruiter told her, "I'm so sorry, you're not eligible for a job here because of your face tattooing." She said, "Actually, that's a religious symbol. You can't discriminate against me." And she didn't say it rudely. She just let him know. So again, the curiosity, right? So maybe something you said was not meant as offensive. Maybe you tried to compliment somebody and it came out in a weird way. But so ask, respond with curiosity. Um, and then, if you still disagree with them, okay, but there's still not a cause to be ugly. Then on the other side, sometimes people are hypersensitive. Some people, that's because of a mental health diagnosis. Sometimes it's because of a trauma that they've had happen to them. And I think that that's something that a lot of people are missing right now. And I'm not going to go into any details, but especially, with, let's say the racial, I'm just going to, as the example, with some of the racial issues going on right now, and concerns, people are missing that a lot of what they're perceiving as hypersensitivity is a response to trauma over years. And so it
Yes.
may not be what you said in that exact moment, but you triggered something from something awful that happened before. And so
Yes.
you need to be very sensitive. For instance, I have a friend who had police pull a gun on her 7-year-old Black child. And so when you talk about that with her, she can get a little heated. And she'll be the first to tell you, and she has to separate herself, calm down, and then she can come back and have a rational conversation. But that triggers that pain of being scared for her child's life. And that was not a comment to try to
Yes.
bash all police officers, by the way. That's just to give an example.
Hmm.
But it's so just remember that can be it. So try to think about why that sensitivity is there. Nobody has a sensitivity just to have a sensitivity or because they're inferior or because they're stupid. There is a reason for that. Now, it can be a shallow reason, like
Yeah.
I need to protect my ego. That can definitely be a thing. It could be a shallow reason where they just need to grow up. Uh, but, but a
Right.
lot of times, especially with the types of issues that we're seeing right now, there is a trauma involved, or there is an actual reason. So, or it's not sensitivity after all. You were accidentally a jerk. So, just things to consider. But sometimes we just need to work on ourselves, right? And you need to realize that you're being hypersensitive to something, and you need to calm down. I've had to do it. I've had to go, okay,
Yeah.
you're getting a little too sensitive for this. Yes, it's based on this, but that's not reality right now. Come on, lady.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've all been there once or
Oh,
twice
oh
anyway.
yeah. Like I did this. I was having this great conversation at one point with a colleague of mine who brought up who brought up Michael Vick, not realizing that I had been working at the SPCA when all that happened with him, and I knew some of the dogs, and I'd been part of that whole thing. And man, did I start to go off, not really like on him, but just like on a whole thing. And I was
Yeah.
like, in my mind, I stopped and I went, no, I need to calm down. And he just started laughing at me, and we went on. He goes, sensitive subject, noted, and just kind of went on. But
Yeah.
in that moment, my brain just went, "Ah, that was so awful, attack, attack, attack,"
Yeah.
And again, not
Yeah.
my friend that said it, but Michael Vick. So yeah, you sometimes you just gotta catch yourself being a little extra, and
Years later, still,
you're just
Michael.
like, "Eh."
Yeah.
I
But
will still get on
and
that
that's a
soapbox
very
from time to
good,
time.
valid point. Yeah,
Yeah.
valid point. And a lot of people, like you said, overlook those differentiations
Yeah.
between the two because it
Yeah,
really does matter.
it
And
does.
it's really odd. And some of this is going to be even more challenging as we go forward into our world. But
Right.
it's always a good thing to keep on top of how people are feeling and doing
Yes.
and educating yourself on different perspectives, things like that.
Yes.
You have a couple different talk shows, you're out there
Oh yeah.
doing podcast all the time. What are some of the things that drive you to keep educating yourself
Mm.
and making sure our world goes in the right direction?
Well, my missions, for one, that we discussed earlier.
Yep.
I'm also just naturally curious, and part of my neurodiversity is that I have to have things be correct. I cannot have them
Ah.
not correct. So part one of my diagnoses is that I am obsessive compulsive. And if something
OCD.
is not,
Yeah.
yeah, I have legit OCD. Like I categorize my M&Ms and have to have even numbers and so on and so forth. Uh, Tons of fun. Um, but it does help me organize myself for work. And then some things have to be correct. I have to do things in the most efficient way, the most, practical way. They have to be right. And so because of that, I constantly have to know everything. I have to know, why is this? What is happening? So I can form, good opinions and then teach others, because I want other people to be right too. That's another thing. That's just a personal preference. That's not part of my neurodiversity. I want other people to know
Yeah.
things. And so going back to my experience with my father, and so and my grandfather as well, who was an educator. And so it's I constantly am looking things up, and I want to share. You want to make sure that your sources are great. So focus on government sites. Focus on in first world countries. Let me specify that. Um, Focus on educational sites. Focus on institutions that are based on research. Do not, I repeat, do not go to news sites and only stop there. You can use that as a jumping point. Like you can go to CNN or NBC and use that as a jumping point, but then go check the sources and double check the information. Be careful with religiously based things, anything based from a particular charity, even if it's a good charity. The research may be good, but double check yourself. That's a biased source. So be very specific with that. And then also don't forget learned experience, the value of that, and human experience. So, go online. And so for instance, I'm obsessed with neurodiversity. I do a lot of talks about it. So I like to learn all the different neurodiversities. And so I'll pick a new one and just, dive down the rabbit hole. And I like to read about it educationally, the nuts and bolts, but then I want to know the experience of the humans. And so I go on YouTube and I find the people with the diagnoses and I listen to them. I do the podcasts, I listen to their podcasts. I hear their experience. I go hear them speak. And that's part of it too, because the nuts and bolts can only get you so far especially when you're dealing with
Yeah.
humanity. So you want to understand that experience as well. But it's a driving force to make the world better, because every bit of research, and I mean Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, uh, Harvard, oh gosh, who else? Um, anyway, they're endless. It's the end of the day. Sorry, my brain's going. But there's three sources for you. They're everything. Oh, Hewlett Packard did a great study on this. That
Huh.
inclusion and and being inclusive in business increases productivity, It increases innovation. It increases profits, employee retention, employee health, employee satisfaction, improves your hiring. And so from A to Z, this is just better business. And so again, back to the I need things to be right. If this is the better way to do it, let's do it. And by the way, the same thing works in life. The more inclusive you are, the better you communicate with your partner, the better you communicate with your friends and break that ego defense and respond to curiosity, the stronger relationships you will have, the more inclusive you are with these people and understand that they are who they are and embrace them and ask how you can help and how you can be an ally. You will have stronger and better relationships. Everything in your life improves with true inclusivity.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. It's a mouthful. You just said a lot right there. and it's good information. No, that's really good.
And also hashtag don't be a shitty human. Like just saying.
Yes.
Like just hashtag don't be a shitty human.
That. Yeah. And of course. Katherine, is there anything important that we missed in our talk today that you'd like to share with us?
You covered so much, which I thought was great, by the way. This talk really took a left in all the right ways. I will say this. all the information is out there for things that you want to understand, even the things that seem most confusing. And sometimes you will be flabbergasted at what you learn. So get out there, do the research and learn. Your life, it doesn't take that long either. Like I'm not spending I sometimes spend hours and hours, but it only takes a few minutes to get the basics. And then you'll start to have a stronger understanding. So take that time and grow as a person. Outside of that, again, hashtag don't be a shitty human. It's really that simple.
That's right. Any specific call to action for people?
Yes. You know what? I'm going to say this. Just if you're on the business side and you are looking to hire, focus on mission alignment, throw away those idiotic candidate profiles and I see you laughing at me, and throw away those idiot candidate profiles. They don't work. They create bias. And align with missions, find the skill sets and find the creative candidates, get innovative in your hiring. And if you are on the other side and you are struggling, and let's say you have your own diagnoses, you have your own disabilities, oh my gosh, trust me, you are going to be a wonderful asset to a company. Do not lose hope. If you want help learning how to best present yourself to companies, I have wonderful friends who that is their mission in life, and I am happy to introduce you. There are companies out there that is their whole that is their whole mission, to find you jobs. If you need that, please reach out to me. I am happy to help you. One of them is Jobs for Humanity. There are others as well. If you need help, please reach out to me. I am here to help. But in general, align with your missions. Do everything for your missions. Run towards them, embrace them, and you will have a happier life.
That's well said. And I can't agree more. Align yourself with your passion, your mission, and you're going to succeed. I love it. Where can people find you and get in touch with you, and the best way to get involved with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the COO of the Octopus Movement, which is an international movement for nonlinear and neurodiverse thinkers. So you can go to the Octopus Movement and I'm there. I'm on LinkedIn everywhere, and I'm one of 2 Katherine McCords with my spelling in the United States. So it's not difficult to find me there. Message me, connect with me. I will respond to you very quickly. And I am happy to engage with anyone listening. And then also, my speaker site is kmccordspeaking.com, and my professional site is titanmanagementusa.com. Any of those ways, feel free to reach out.
Katherine, you are a wealth of knowledge, and it's a pleasure to talk with you. I thank you for being part of the Dead America podcast today.
It was a blast. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. thank you for joining us today. If you found this podcast enlightening, entertaining, educational in any way, please share, like, subscribe, and join us right back here next week for another great episode of Dead America Podcast. I'm Ed Watters, your host. Enjoy your afternoon, wherever you may be.